We as policymakers will decide when the state will be open to suit and when we will waive our sovereign immunity. That's what this whole bill is about. And I know that there are some of the senior members in this body that would recognize what liability lies out there unless we enact this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Any discussion on floor amendment number 3? Representative Blakosure.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the
Please
amendment.
proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I ask him to recuse himself and refrain from arguing about this. I think there is a direct
Representative Thielen, you're out of order.
conflict, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Blakosure has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to have him disclose his relationship with the firm that is seeking
Yes.
$650 an hour.
Representative
in
Thielen,
legal
I will-
fees.
Speaker, she is out of order, and can I explain why I don't need to ask
Representative Thielen,
for
could you please sit
recusal?
down? Representative Blakosure, you have the floor. Please
Thank you.
proceed.
First reason I don't have to ask for a potential conflict of interest is because her floor amendment has nothing to do with attorney's fees. If she reads it closely, much as she wants to try and say there's the potential for it to get amended as it moves on, heck, any bill has the potential to get amended to move on and include that issue. So why do we make that argument? That is not what's before us. What's before us is this bill. This proposed amendment that she's trying to do to HRS 661 has nothing to do with attorney's fees. Instead, what it's talking about is the state's sovereign immunity. Let me get to that. The state's sovereign immunity is not only limited to
Mr.
policy
Speaker.
issues.
Mr. Speaker.
Representative Thielen, Representative Blakosure has the
Point
floor.
of clarification, I don't see how the Speaker can say this has nothing to do with attorney's fees, because unless we maintain our
Representative
sovereign
Thielen, you had the
immunity,
chance
then
to
there will
offer
be suit.
your discourse. Right now, we have Representative Blakosure with the floor. Representative Blakosure, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, had the proponent wanted to introduce attorney fees, she could have introduced attorney fees, but let me look at the underlying language. I don't see the word attorney, I don't see the word fees anywhere therein in her proposed amendment. Therefore, that's not the subject of this proposed amendment. What this proposed amendment is about is sovereign immunity. However, the problem with that is it's not just about the policy decisions of this legislature. What is also included in sovereign immunity is the actions of the administration. And let me be more specific. When the administration and the Department of Human Services had said that they had the right to terminate all dialysis and cancer treatments for people from Micronesia, that was something that needed to be challenged in federal court as well as state court. Had this amendment passed, if this language is in our statute books, guess what? There wouldn't have been that cause of action in state court. What the Attorney General is seeking to do is undo years and years of precedent that has been built up in HRS 661. That is what is before us. And so much as she may be trying to say that this is about attorney's fees and other things, that is not the issue before us. And so I would say if she wants to introduce that, then actually that's what the floor amendment should be. Because actually she's really misaligned the issue. Because the private attorney general doctrine is specifically defined by our Hawaii Supreme Court in the Waiahole case. And there's a three-pronged test that must be met. None of those three bills she's mentioned today have anything to do with the private attorney general doctrine. It all would fail the test. All of them would fail that test. So before she starts citing the private attorney general doctrine, I'd suggest she read the case and find out what the three-pronged test is. And then maybe she can talk about the doctrine and actually mean what it has to say. Instead of just speculating and instead talking about some people's law firm, which has nothing to do, again, with this amendment. Third, let me say that, again, to cite from the minority leader, the process is so important. This bill was actually heard in the Judiciary Committee on February 23rd. However, the bill did not move because actually what the Attorney General wanted was not the bill, not the language that's before us. He wanted something completely different. And so what he asked was for an amendment to put in some language on attorney's fees. But that has not got a hearing. That was not anything anybody was able to submit testimony. And so when we talk about the process being so important, when we talk about transparency and the people having an opportunity to come to this body and talk and testify on bills, the Attorney General should not be trying to subterfuge and slide in language and bills that have nothing to do with the actual subject. And that's the problem. Because this floor amendment and the issue she's talking about are two entirely different things. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on floor amendment 3?
Speaker.
Representative Ward,
Speaker, I rise in support of the measure.
please proceed in support.
Speaker, I can't speak for the two-thirds in here who are not lawyers, but I can say from common sense, what the Speaker from Kailua said is, the Supreme Court has taken an unprecedented step. They have threatened the sovereign immunity of this body, and if it's going to cost us an arm and a leg in terms of fees, we ought to wake up and pay attention to it. Now, is this unprecedented? What did the black robes do to this body in the 90s? And I'm not one of those older members because I had a hiatus. But in the 90s, the black-robed individual said, same-sex marriage is legal in the state of Hawaii the way we read it. Then CJ, the Chief Justice, said, you, the legislature, have the trump card. What the good representative from Kailua is trying to tell us, wake up, legislator. If we don't tell and send a message to the Supreme Court that sovereign immunity rests with us unless we say otherwise, all of these suits, it was the Whale Foundation that got, I forget how many hundreds of thousands of dollars when they brought the super ferry to court. It's not only these pending ones, it's the other ones that we're going to have to pay out an arm and a leg for. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a fiscal issue, but it's one that the Supreme Court needs to hear from us about. That's basically the non-legal language that she is talking about. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on floor amendment number 3? If not, Representative Finnegan,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a brief rebuttal because
please proceed.
because of a quote that I had said earlier.
You're in favor?
Yes, I'm in favor of
Okay,
the
please
measure.
proceed.
Thank you. Just a brief rebuttal. The issue is, to me, I believe that the AG feels that that particular amendment is very germane to the bill and offered amendment, just like we do in any other committee. The problem that I had with the Taro Security Bill is that we were talking about prior concurrence of the chairs before that. And I know that that is something important to this body, and it's important to the Speaker, and it's important to the process. And to hear on this very floor, in committee say that there was prior concurrence, and in this on very floor saying there wasn't, that's disturbing, Mr. Speaker, because then that information was misrepresented. None of the information that we're talking about this, on this bill is misrepresented, Mr. Speaker. The AG in committee did like what they do on a lot of the different bills where they feel it's related and germane to the bill. They're going to offer an amendment to make the bill better, and that's what he did. And I feel that we are in that process. Thank you.
Any further discussion on floor amendment number 3? If not, members, if you're voting aye for the floor amendment, vote aye. If you're voting no, vote no. Members, at the time, will be taking a voice vote. All those in favor say aye. All those who oppose say no. No. The motion is defeated. Members, we are back to the main motion. Any discussion to House Bill number 2690, Senate Committee Report number 508-10? Any discussion to the main motion? Members, any discussion? If not, let's move to House Bill number 2874.